My name is Adam Kahn, and for my Leadership and Change course, I interviewed my pastor to analyze his leadership through the lens of Kouzes and Posner's 5 practices and 10 commitments of exemplary leadership. Our conversation spanned over an hour and a half, covering topics like spiritual leadership, organizational challenges, change processes, and the daily realities of leading a congregation. For this video, I'll be sharing my analysis and including a few clips from my pastor to illustrate how his leadership aligns with the Kouzes and Posner framework.
I'll have you say who you are.
I'm Pastor David Cited. I'm pastor of Grace Lutheran Church in Phoenix, Arizona.
As I began explaining the premise of the interview, Pastor David took interest in the book these concepts originate from, hoping to improve his own leadership skills, while being interviewed for standing out as an exemplary leader.
I'm going to ask some questions about those, give a short explanation before each.
Is this based off of a book that you're reading?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to email you that. So I have the book, so I'm going to read it.
The first practice Kouzes and Posner present is model the way, and the commitments that go along with this are clarify values and set the example. When asked about this practice and these commitments, Pastor David had this to say.
My values, my convictions, specifically I had to figure out what those values and convictions were through my seminary days and in my early ministry of what am I willing to lead, what am I not willing to lead. My values revolve around sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, the gospel, and what does that mean? It means sharing God's unconditional love and favor with everybody and allowing God to change and transform people. And so that means that when I do something, I do my best to try to allow people, to show people that they are accepted, that they are loved, that they are valued. So if anything that doesn't go along with those values, I'm not going to lead in that way.
Something we start to see here and notice as the interview goes on is that Pastor David is touching a lot of the same points as Kouzes and Posner when talking about his own leadership style, while he is completely unfamiliar with their work. In the last clip, I prompted him to talk about clarifying values, which is the first commitment for Model the Way. However, he also began talking about how he sets an example, which is the second commitment. Pastor David does go into much further detail, but unfortunately due to time constraints, I cannot include all of his elaboration for each practice and commitment. The next practice, inspire a shared vision, and the commitments, envision the future and enlist others, has been at the forefront of Grace Lutheran Church in recent months. In this area, Pastor David's take is,
first, it is all about listening. Good case in point, again, my first church, I went in there, they voted to go into redevelopment, and I came in and I said, okay, I was also new at it, and I changed too much too fast too soon, and their heads were spinning, and I'm like, but this is what you wanted. Now I came into this church and I said, okay, I'm not going to change anything right now. I want to hear who is around here, who are the people, what do they envision, what do they want, and my role is to listen to that and see, okay, it's really hard to go into a place and say this is what I want, what I envision for this place when you really don't know, when I don't know really much about it. I mean, I had the benefit of having known this church before I came here because I had been in the Phoenix area for 6 years. I knew my predecessor, but I didn't know the people of the congregation, and so really sitting down and, who are you? Where do you come from? Why did you want this church? What do you want for the future of this church? And right now, that's what we're doing. We're compiling everybody's thoughts.
Once again, Pastor David unintentionally hit both commitments for the same practice in answering one question. At once, he is envisioning the future and enlisting others to help him envision the future. The third leadership practice is to challenge the process. Commitments are search for opportunities, experiment, and take risks. At this point, Pastor David has a few ideas of where the church needs to go, and that mostly involves adapting with times and technologies. While keeping the same mission, he says that the method needs to change. He brings up the issue of our time and region. In the modern age, and in the Western United States, people are less committed to faith, often because they've had bad experience with faith or they've just never had any experience with faith. This is where Pastor David sees opportunity and wants to take a risk in trying to connect with these sorts of people. The next practice is enable others to act. Commitments are foster collaboration and strengthen others. Pastor David heavily emphasized the importance of teamwork and building trust. He often reiterated the idea that
leaders need to have followers, and if you're a leader without followers, you're just going for a walk. I mean, it's really, you gotta have people.
He did admit that he struggles with strengthening others, specifically those who have the potential to be leaders but are hesitant to do so. On the contrary to that, I found Pastor David to be most naturally gifted at the practice encourage the heart, which commitments are recognize contributions, celebrate values and victories. Before I got to this section and asked the questions that I wanted to ask for encourage the heart, he had already essentially answered all of them.
Celebrating the wins, that's another thing. Celebrating the wins, which I haven't done much of lately. I remember going to a redevelopers conference, and one of the people, the speakers said, "When was the last time your church bought a cake?" And it was like, we do have cake here from time to time, but when do you celebrate?
Overall, Pastor David's leadership closely aligns with the 5 practices and 10 commitments described by Kouzes and Posner, despite him not having any knowledge of the 5 practices or 10 commitments prior. His emphasis on values, vision, innovation, collaboration, and encouragement demonstrates a well-rounded approach to leading change in a faith-based organization. This interview helped me better understand how the principles in the Leadership Challenge appear in real-life contexts and how they shape effective leadership in organizations. Thank you for watching. Kouzes and Posner's books are cited below in the description, and if you're interested in hearing the whole interview with Pastor David, that will also be linked in the description after it is uploaded sometime next week.